Mr. President, all honorable dignitaries, good afternoon. My names are Richard Genga Asiyo. My father is Caesar Asiyo, grandson to Phoebe Asiyo. It's my pleasure to read her eulogy. Phoebe Muga Asiyo was born on September 12, 1932 in Gendia village, Homa Bay County, Kenya. Her family comes from the Agoro subclan of the Luo community, known for its strong traditions and matriarchal values. Growing up at the Gendia mission station, she was surrounded by missionaries who taught her important values and beliefs. Her dad, Joel Omer, was a Seventh-day Adventist evangelist who traveled a lot to preach, and Phoebe learned the importance of serving others and sharing stories. Her mother, Miriam Amolo, was a famous traditional midwife and herbalist who was respected for her knowledge and kindness in caring for mothers and babies. Phoebe had several siblings and grew up in a big, close-knit family that supported each other and showed respect for one another. From a young age, she noticed and learned about challenges women faced in her society. They were often overworked and didn't have much in say of decisions, but they were still the heart and soul of families and communities everywhere. My Dani's journey to education was tough, especially in colonial Kenya, where boys were the priority. Girls like Phoebe barely made it past primary school, but Phoebe was determined. She went to Gendia Primary School from 1938 to 1945 and later joined Kamagambo Girls' School for secondary education. Back then, only 65 out of over 1,100 candidates for Kenya's Certificate of Primary Education were girls, and Phoebe was one of them. Can you imagine that? She was a real star student, but life wasn't always easy. At Kamagambo, girls were often left out of math and English classes, but Phoebe wasn't one to back down. She fought for her right to learn and helped change the rules. Teachers at Kamagambo noticed her dedication and encouraged her to focus on her studies instead of getting married early, which was a norm for girls in her community in Kenya at the time. After Kamagambo, Phoebe went to Kangaroo Teacher Training College in Embu. This was a huge step for her. She was one of the few African girls of her generation to train as a teacher. She was a trailblazer for girls' education in her region, and everyone in her village respected and admired her. Phoebe met her husband, Bezalel Richard Asiyo Genga, in 1951. They got married and went on to have 5 lovely children together. Phoebe's home became a heaven for kids and relatives as well as orphans. It's a true testament to her incredible generosity. Phoebe's early career was marked by teaching and social work. She started as a primary school teacher, soon became involved in addressing bigger social issues. When the state of emergency was declared during the Mau Mau uprising in 1950, she decided to switch to social work with the Nairobi Municipal Council. Amidst all the chaos and violence of colonial times, tribal segregation and family breakdowns, Phoebe supported mothers and children who had been displaced by the conflict. She fought for fairness, hygiene, and the rights of women workers in Nairobi estates and factories. Phoebe's commitment to social justice and children's welfare also led her to participate in campaigns to provide education and basic services to the most vulnerable of communities. Maendeleo ya Wanawake and Women's Activism, a legacy of love and service. Phoebe joined Maendeleo ya Wanawake in 1953, just a few years after it was first founded. She played a huge role in turning Maendeleo from a colonial white-run organization into a national platform for African women's development. She got rural women involved, started economic empowerment programs, and fought for better maternal and child health, education, and political participation. In 1958, Asiyo became the first African president of Maendeleo ya Wanawake. She totally defied the segregationist plans of the colonial government and built a massive network of women. Her leadership was key in challenging discrimination, organizing protests for African representation in national women's organizations, and fighting for women's rights during Kenya's independence. After Kenya gained independence, Asiyo became the assistant superintendent of prisons, becoming the first African woman to hold that position. She fought for the dignity and special treatment of female prisoners and mothers, opposed the death penalty, and set up programs to help prisoners and mothers get back on their feet. Asiyo's leadership continued to grow, and she was appointed to the United Nations. She served on several Kenyan delegations to the UN General Assembly, championing human rights and anti-discrimination, policies and women's rights around the world. As Kenya's delegate to the Commission on the Status of Women, she helped shape important policies on gender equality, development, and peace. In 1979, after local elders endorsed her, Phoebe entered politics. She became a member of parliament for Karachuonyo. Her campaign broke cultural taboos and inspired a huge movement of women into politics. Even though she faced misogynist attacks and electoral violence throughout her career, Asiyo fought against policies and practices that kept women from having equal rights. She was a key player in community development, setting up schools, health centers, irrigation and water projects, and women's self-help groups. Her leadership style was all about making sure everyone was included and taking care of others. Thank you very much.
My name is Ethan Amani, great-grandson of Dani. His Excellency, the President, and all protocols observed, thank you for coming.
Basi tunatambua kufika kwa Mheshimiwa Oburu Odinga.
Asiyo introduced a groundbreaking motion in Parliament called the Affirmative Action Motion. This motion called for the legal requirement for women to be included in decision-making at all levels of government. Although it was initially rejected, Asiyo's advocacy was a major step forward and helped pave the way for gender equality in Kenya's 2010 constitution. Transforming women's movements. Asiyo's leadership in the National Council of Women of Kenya and various local and international forums laid the foundation for future generations of Kenyan women leaders. International recognition. Asiyo served as a goodwill ambassador for the UN Development Fund for Women, advising global policy and connecting Kenyan women's activism to the international stage. Community impact. Asiyo was instrumental in founding Nyaburi School for the Physically Challenged, driving medical outreach programs and championing marginalized groups. Role model and mentor. She mentored many women who later became prominent leaders in politics, academia, and civil society. Asiyo's personal qualities and influence were truly remarkable. She was a fierce advocate for women's rights and a dedicated servant leader who made a lasting impact on the lives of many. Phoebe Asiyo's life is a true testament to courage, wit, and a deep sense of justice. Growing up in a culturally rich and faith-filled environment, she developed a vision for gender equality and social transformation. Her resilience and compassion have inspired countless women and men in Kenya, across Africa, and many parts of the world. Now, let's talk about the significant impact Phoebe Asiyo has had on Kenyan society and women's empowerment. Pioneering women's political representation, advancing women's roles in politics. Phoebe Asiyo was one of the first Kenyan women to be elected to parliament, breaking down deeply ingrained gender barriers. Her visibility and activism encouraged more women to seek elected office and public leadership, opening doors in a previously male-dominated political landscape. Historic affirmative action motion. In 1997, Asiyo introduced the groundbreaking affirmative action motion in parliament, advocating for a mandatory inclusion of women in decision-making bodies. Although it was initially defeated, her persistent advocacy laid the foundation for gender quotas that later enshrined in Kenya's 2010 constitution. This set a precedent for women's inclusion in governance, making history. She totally transformed MYWO, turning it from a colonial club into a powerhouse for empowering women and driving development. Asiyo's leadership inspired countless women's groups across the country, pushing for economic self-sufficiency, education, and healthcare. But Asiyo didn't stop there. She mentored and supported generations of women leaders. From politicians and academics to activists and community organizers, many of these amazing women owe their success to Asiyo's guidance, creating a culture of mentorship and support that's still going strong in Kenya today. Asiyo also made a significant impact on legal and policy reforms. She fought for the gender equality, highlighting gaps in women's rights, especially around property rights, anti-discrimination measures, and political participation. Her efforts eventually led to constitutional reforms that required at least 2/3 of public bodies to be of the same gender. She championed the rights of marginalized and vulnerable groups, including women prisoners, rural women, and children with disabilities. She advocated for special policies within the criminal justice system and social services, ensuring that everyone received humane treatment and expanded rights. Lastly, Asiyo promoted socioeconomic development through community projects and economic initiatives. She implemented and mobilized support for various projects focused on education, water access, agricultural innovation, and health, particularly maternal and child health. By supporting self-help groups and cooperatives, Asiyo helped women gain economic independence and resilience at the grassroots level. Asiyo's legacy as a true trailblazer in the women's movement will continue to inspire generations to come. She was a fierce advocate for girls' education, and her efforts were nothing short of remarkable. She set up scholarships, fought for better, and even mentored families to make sure their daughters got the best education possible. She was also a key player in Kenya's constitution-making process. She participated in national forums and helped shape policies around gender equity, social justice, and participatory governance. And she didn't stop at Kenya's borders. She represented Kenya at the United Nations and was even named UNIFEM Goodwill Ambassador. This meant she got to highlight Kenyan women's issues on the global stage and helped build strong connections between Kenya's women's movement and other organizations fighting for women's rights around the world. Asiyo's impact extended beyond her work in Kenya. She challenged traditional gender roles and cultural restrictions on women, and she helped shift public attitudes towards women's leadership, education, and property rights. Today, women in leadership roles are more accepted and normalized in Kenya, all thanks to Asiyo's pioneering work. Let's not forget her inspiring story. She rose from a rural village to become a national and international figure. She's a true example of what women can achieve if they set their minds to it. She inspires countless others to stand up for justice, inclusiveness, and service to the community. Phoebe Asiyo's legacy continues to shape Kenya's political, legal, and social fabric through her life's works in education, social service, and public administration, activism, and politics. She has become a true pioneer and icon of African women's leadership. Her leadership not only brought about tangible reforms in representation, education, and policy, but she also sparked a sustained movement for women's empowerment that's still going strong today. She's a true icon of Kenya's progress towards inclusive development. Thank you. Thank you.
Let us appreciate them with a louder clap than that, please. Thank you very much, Richard and Ethan. It is impossible to mention Honorable Dr. Phoebe Asiyo without mentioning maendeleo ya wanawake. And at this point, Your Excellency, sir, allow me to welcome the chairperson, Mrs. Rehab Mwikali Muiu, chairperson of the maendeleo ya wanawake, to also deliver her tribute and also speak on behalf of the movement. Tumkaribishe kwa makofi tafadhali mwenyekiti wa maendeleo ya wanawake ambaye ni Rehab Mwikali Muiu.
Your Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya, and Commander-in-Chief of the Kenyan Defense Forces, the family of Mama Phoebe Asiyo, our Prime Cabinet Secretary, Governor of this region, and all the other governors, Maendeleo team. Your Excellency, we as Maendeleo cannot thank you enough for what you have done for us. Sir, I wrote to you through CS Mokomen and PS Raymond Omolo 2 days after we lost Mama Asiyo. And I requested for what you have given us here and at home. Your Excellency, the good Lord will pay you. Our request today is ignore the noises. Hawa wamama wa maendeleo muko? Wamama muko? Na wale wako hapa niko na patron nitamuita na timu ya ofisi na secretary tutakuonyesha we have thanked you. Allow me in very few minutes to read and I'll call the patron to say something. Familia ya Mama Phoebe, we have been with you in many situations. We were here after we lost Mama 2 weeks ago.